I got you. I got you. What? All right, everybody, welcome back to the Reaver Approach channel. Today, we are going to be talking about holsters and which one is right for you. Today, we're going to be primarily focusing on like inside the waistband, concealed carry holsters. So there are a lot of different type of holsters, whole ton. The main categories is going to be Kydex, leather, fabric, some sort of blend. So spoiler alert, my favorite is Kydex. However, that's my preference. I have a lot of reasons for that, but you need to make the decision on your own. I'm not going to be the one that tells you yours doesn't work when you've been using it for so long and you're ultra efficient with it. So long as you're carrying in a safe and effective way and you are proficient with it, do what you need. However, if you're new to these things and you kind of want to peruse your options and see what's out there, this video might be for you. First is inside the waistband holsters, commonly referred as IWB. Conversely, there's OWB, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. However, inside the waistband, the most popular is going to be APPENDIX, as well as like the 4 or 5 o'clock. So right about here, APPENDIX is when it sits, right there in front of you. I'm a huge fan of this carry method. The only problem is the fact of my body type just doesn't seem to allow it, or I'm just fucking stupid. Either way, no matter what I do, when I'm carrying APPENDIX, it always just feels like I've got something going into my guts and it's just so uncomfortable. I can't carry that way. I know a lot of guys can set it up and they carry it and it's all day comfort. I'm not that person. If you've got a tip for that, help me. Put it in the comments, because I think APPENDIX carry is a superior way to carry your gun. You've got a lot of control. It's right there in front of you. It's easy to make sure that your shirt isn't coming up and over it. There's a lot of different types of holsters. Here is a tier 1 concealed holster. This is like, it's got a sidecar with it, which is this second mag carrier, this other mag caddy. I think these are great because it adds a lot of balance to your gun when you've got it put up front, and some allow you to carry a different item. Not everything requires a spare magazine. In a previous video, we talked a lot about medical. T-Rex arms, their new sidecar, very versatile. You can swap them in and out. They have versions that let you carry things like a tourniquets. They're pretty cool because they can disconnect. So if you don't want it, you want to set it up a little different way, you can. Put it back together. Snap, snap, snap. So like I said, this one is by tier 1 concealed. And quite honestly, this is perfection in a holster. This is, the way I see it, the perfect holster. It's got great adjustable retention and the clips are amazing. It's got good thick Kydex and it's very, very comfortable. Something cool about Kydex is it never wears out. Now, sometimes they can break. Most of the time, Kydex companies are going to replace that for free. If you buy it from a reputable brand, you send them a picture and then they're just gonna go ahead and send you a new holster. The next most popular, and this is the one that I have used every single day for about 10 years now, is an inside the waistband holster at my 4 or 5 o'clock, depending. It's just a very basic holster. These are versatile enough that you can carry them APPENDIX as well, if that's something you want. But either way, it's a very simple holster. It's, once again, Kydex by G-Code. I like this little fuzz on there because I feel like it adds a little bit more friction. This is a very popular method of carry. I think most guys end up doing this as well, along with some form of APPENDIX carry. Either way, I like it to have 2 clips on it because that adds a lot of stability on my belt as it's moving there. So my holster isn't canting left and right. So it's pretty consistent with me. Sometimes people prefer to have 1 clip on there because it's more comfortable, because as their body is moving, then their gun can tilt a little bit. Which one is right? That's up to you. Before I switched to full Kydex, I had a leather Kydex blend. That was a very comfortable holster. It had a larger footprint. I'll put in some B-roll of it for you. And it had pretty good retention. Not as good as retention as a full Kydex. However, it was a nice, comfortable blend. One of the issues that you run into with those type of holsters is the fact because it's got a larger footprint on your body, it's going to be a little bit warmer. So it's not like I got hot because of my holster. However, I did feel more sweat there in the summer. Oftentimes that started to feel wet. And when leather is exposed to sweat, water, things like that, it's going to form to the gun. It makes it a very, very custom fit. For mine started to form inside the trigger guard. So when I started to holster it, that leather was starting to brush the trigger, and I felt very uncomfortable about that. Now, I could have reformed it, but that wasn't really something that I was confident with. Another holster I had was by Alien Gear, which was like a synthetic leather with spring steel on the inside, as well as some sort of Kydex on the outside. It doesn't feel like normal Kydex. It feels a little bit more just like a polymer. I was still new. Alien Gear has, I think, mixed feelings as far as people are concerned. For me, I did not like the holster. It felt very sticky when I would holster the gun because the synthetic leather really grabbed hold of the gun. So holstering it was really difficult. And then when I'd try to pull the gun out, most of the time it was so sticky, it would try to bring the holster with it, and it would really fight against those clips. Next on the inside the waistband is some sort of fabric holster. Of all the offerings, I believe these are the weakest. However, they're also the cheapest, and they're pretty universal, so they're not trying to pretend to be something that they're actually not. With all the great offerings that are out there as far as holsters are concerned, I don't see the appeal of using a fabric holster long term. I'm a guy who really appreciates retention, and then these don't offer any sort of retention. The retention is dependent on the belt that they're attached to. So if you want more retention, you have to tighten down your belt, which oftentimes makes it more uncomfortable to wear. So in the long run, I don't see the appeal of using these. It's nice because if you've got one, you can lend it to a buddy, you've got a gun, and you're waiting for maybe a more permanent holster to come. Kydex can sometimes take a little while. I've been waiting like a month for my holster for my VP9, so that's a bummer. That's a bummer. Anyway, I also appreciate being able to holster one-handed. And the thing is with this type of holster is, especially if you've got it run pretty tight with the retention of your belt, what happens is when you pull your gun out, your holster collapses. However, I like to be able to holster one-handed. With these, it's more of a two-handed affair. You kind of have to open it up and then put your pistol into it. And a lot of times what happened was I would push it in and get like caught on my front sight post, and then it would start to like curve in on itself. And then it wouldn't actually get seated all the way. And it would get like bunched up like this when it really needs to sit like this. However, with the abundance of incredible holsters out there, I think swapping to one of the other offerings, you are going to see immediate performance gain. So full leather holsters, they're going to fall closer to the fabric and Kydex blend. They have a little bit more stiffness and rigidity than fabric, but not as much as Kydex. I've never carried a full leather holster, either outside the waistband or inside the waistband. So I can't speak with a lot of authority there. But if you want to run a leather holster, maybe you've got more of a gun that you want to keep nice, then leather is going to be a little bit nicer on your gun slide than anything else. But if you're just running a Glock or some shit like that, who fucking cares about holster wear? But that is up to you. I'm not saying a leather holster is bad, but for me, I'm always going to push Kydex. But find what works for you. Maybe test some stuff. Maybe it's more comfortable for you. That's what you've been using for a long time. Then use it. Leather holsters are cool. They've got style. They're not for me. I feel like I've hit on that enough. So the final component of inside the waistband holsters is the clips that go along with the holsters. A clip can make or break how your gun sits and how comfortable it is and how much retention it has to you. I had one, and this was with my leather Kydex Vetter holster. The clips weren't like ultra aggressive. And so when I sat down on a wooden chair, my gun was kind of pushing down into it, and that ended up pushing my holster up. And then it unclipped itself from my belt and was sitting really higher. As I was walking out, I could feel my holster kind of like teetering at my 4 or 5 o'clock because it was no longer fully affixed to my belt. I like the ones that are either by G-Code or a lot of the other the holster companies like this Tier 1, where it has this very, very aggressive just hook right into it, which makes having it become unseated from your holster because you're tugging it or something else is pushing on it near impossible. Every single time I have to pull this out, you have to pull the clip up and back to get it. They also have loops that just click in and out of it. So I think those are the best if you're looking for the most retention, especially if you're moving around the most. None of my offerings have ever had that. Oftentimes the clips are universal. So if you have a holster with bad clips, you can probably upgrade to something else. All right, moving on to OWB holsters, outside the waistband holsters. These are just like they sound. They are outside the waistband while all the other ones were inside your pants. This can sometimes be a little bit more comfortable, but clothing choice is very important here because it's a little bit harder to conceal when it's outside your waistband. Oftentimes you're going to need some sort of jacket or other article of clothing that can cover that. Weather is very dependent on that as well. In the winter, it's a lot easier. If you've got a long jacket on, really easy to conceal, especially if you've got some sort of pancake holster, which hugs the holster very close to your body, as well as removes a lot of harsh angles, which is gonna cause printing. Some guys are worried about printing, some aren't, but I think those harsh angles are way more likely to catch on your article of clothing, on your jacket, and then keep it from sliding up over it, and that reduces your concealability. This is an old Alien Gear holster. This one's been a little bit brutalized because I had a buddy borrow it and he had an optic cut on it, but it works all the same still. But if this is something you want, it's a lot easier to draw. Oftentimes it's more comfortable. It's not inside your pants, but it is less concealable. Something to remember is the more concealable that your weapon is, the less quick access you have to it, so the less availability it has. This also goes for ankle holsters, belly bands, and stuff like that, which we'll talk about at the end of the video. Now, with outside the waistband holsters, like I said, focus on your clothing choice, as well as your holster type and your weapon type. With smaller guns, it's a lot easier to conceal outside the waistband. But once you start getting into that full-size realm, it's a lot harder. So pick your battles accordingly, especially if you're in some of those climates where you don't want to be wearing a jacket. With outside the waistband holsters, you might be intrigued to carry a small of the back holster. I know as a young concealed carry holder, I was very intrigued by that because I thought they looked awesome. I don't know what it is that made them feel so cool, but I wanted one. And I used one for about 6 months. And then I read something somewhere, and this is the real thing that turned it off for me. One, it's going to be the furthest from your hand to draw, so it's a little bit harder. You have to clear more clothing. If you've got a jacket on, which you have to carry something like that, or a really long shirt, you have to clear that garment all the way back and then to draw it, so it's a slower draw. Here's the main reason why I didn't like it was there is a chunk of metal placed at the base of your spine. That chunk of metal is your gun, and your spine is very important. And I live in a place where it's winter most of the time, as you can see. So if I were to slip on ice, what's going to happen? When you slip, what do? You land kind of flat on your ass. You're going to land where your fucking gun is placed against your spine. And so you're way more likely to have some sort of injury to your spine because you are carrying with that gun right there. So I strongly discourage this sort of carry method. If you have one slip and you end up paralyzing yourself because you break your spine right down there, that's fucking nuts. So finally, as far as other holsters are concerned, there is the shoulder holster. If you're going for the 80s detective vibes, and that's absolutely a holster for you. One of the biggest brands as far as that is concerned is Galco. They've been around for a long time. It's a leather holster. Mine is an Elite Survival Systems. I was kind of drinking their Kool-Aid for a while because they made some cool looking stuff. However, shoulder holsters are really going to be clothing dependent. You really need to always have a jacket on. If you're a detective or something like that, people know that you have a gun on, then you can take your jacket off in the office and obviously you've got a holster on. That isn't a big deal. But if you're only concealing it, so if you were like this and you want to go to the shopping mall and something like this, then you can conceal it underneath the jacket, sure. But if you want to take the jacket off, you've got nowhere to put your gun. You need to be thoughtful with how you choose that. If you're a professional driver, you're in a car for a long time, shoulder holsters have a lot of appeal because waistband holsters are very hard to get to and oftentimes uncomfortable when you're driving a lot. And that's because you've got the seatbelt over it and you've got it pushing into your gun. However, if it's this up here, it's a lot easier to access. So if you're a professional driver or Secret Service, then that's cool. It's an option for you. Something that doesn't work for me as far as shoulder holsters are concerned is with my guns, which is Glock 19, very popular carry size, is the fact of it sticks out from underneath my armpit a little bit more. I'll put in some B-roll so you can tell something is underneath. So it's not really concealed. So you can kind of look at it, it's like, what is going on there? Like, does he have a tumor? Does he have a gun? Ooh. So I'm a pretty slender guy, so it doesn't work for me that well. There are shoulder holster types that orient the gun like vertically up and down, and that would be a lot easier to conceal because it sits a little further back. It's not quite as long and then you can conceal it a little bit easier that way. But I've never used one of those holsters. What you can also do is have maybe of a smaller gun, so like a Walther PPK, those James Bond vibes, just very gentlemanly. And then some people wear it underneath their shirt, so they got like maybe a t-shirt on and then they've got a button up or something over that. Now it's a lot deeper concealed, and so you got to Superman it in order to get to your gun. So those are way more the mainstream ways to carry. I'm sure about 80-90% of the population that carries concealed carries in those ways. There are a few other ways, things like ankle holsters, belly bands, holster shirts. There's so many different types. I have very limited experience with those, so I'm not going to try to add my thoughts to those. On the idea of belly bands and things like that, those are cool if you go to the gym a lot and you want to be able to carry. What way is the right method to carry? I don't know. You need to pick what works best for you. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Thanks for getting all the way to the end of this video. If you have any thoughts, put them down in the comments. If you like this video, consider the subscribe button. Bing! I think that's all I'm going to say there. I don't have a clever line. Anyway. Oh, we got to do comment of the week. All right, we are back with my favorite comment of the week. This one was brought to you by this guy. Bing! So this is in reference to me calling the Glock 19 and just Glocks in general ugly guns, all right? The aesthetics of the Glock, it's a fucking potato. So this guy thinks Glocks are beautiful. All right, so that's his method of his standard of beauty. This man looks like he has a severe case of Down syndrome, and he's talking about ugly. Boy, you look like you got hit with ugly as you came out of your mama. Fucking mint comment. Outstanding. The thing is, I came out of my dad, if you know what I mean. So anyway, if you think Glock is a pretty gun, then ooh shit, you must be fucking a brick wall, dude. Well, that's okay. You don't have to be attracted to me. I'm not looking for love right now. Kind of am. I'm so lonely. Anyway, hope you liked it.